the record in the matter 24 CF 252, State of Wisconsin versus Andrew Sonnenberg. This date appears through District Attorney Kevin Schmidt in person. We have Renee Landgraf, Defense Counsel in person. Mr. Sonnenberg appears in person in custody. We're set today in this matter for the sentencing portion of this case. Mr. Sonnenberg pled guilty to first-degree recklessly endangering safety, a Class F felony. The other matters were dismissed and read in for purposes of sentencing. I know that this is an emotional day for you. It's a serious day for you. Did you have enough time to go over both of these documents with your attorney?
Yes, Your Honor.
And did you understand what these contain?
Yes, Your Honor, a little bit, yeah.
Did you find were there any material facts or anything that was wrong that you want to correct to the court other than what Ms. Landgraf has filed?
No.
No, all right. And I'm gonna say, Ms. Landgraf, if he is going to make a statement, I will need that microphone down because it's hard to hear him. There we go. Off the record. Is he not handcuffed?
No, he's got a brace on his arm. We don't have handcuffs.
All right. I'm sure it's a situation that we have a lot of enforcement here, that if something were to go awry, then we are here. All right, back on the record. Let's start with the first statement, Ms. Bauer. Who is going to come and make a statement?
That black desk.
Off the record again, I would feel more comfortable if we had a law enforcement officer on that side as well. Thank you. Thank you, Captain. Back on the record. Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Colin Gerald O'Toole, COLLIN GERALD _TOOLE.
All right. Officer O'Toole, if you would like to please present your statement to the court. And if you're reading something, please read it slowly so that the court reporter can take down everything. And if this is going to be emotional for you and you need to stop, that's fine. I'd rather have you stop and take a breath than to not understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay.
The first one will be for Officer Zajac, who couldn't be here today. Your Honor, on the evening of December 16, 2024, my life could have been taken from me. On Monday, December 16, 2025, at approximately 5:55 p.m., I was nearing the end of my shift. It had been a long day, and I was with Officer O'Toole, who was in phase 3 of his field training. We had just cleared the Burnett County Jail after handling another incident and were heading home for the night. As I pulled into my driveway, a call came over the radio, one that instantly made my heart sink. It was from St. Croix Tribal Dispatch, relaying a 911 call that had came in at Burnett County Dispatch. Raina LaPointe, the mother of Monica, said Andrew was drunk and had locked Monica in the bathroom. He wouldn't let her out. I knew Andrew. I knew his history. I knew what he was capable of. A man I knew from prior violent incidents. Monica had a restraining order against him. I knew he was capable of harm. I knew she was in danger. And I knew that if I waited or checked off duty, as I was just minutes from doing, someone could have been hurt or worse, killed. What happened next changed the way I will respond to calls for the rest of my life. Monica had a protection order against him for a reason. He's a big man, aggressive when intoxicated. And Monica is significantly smaller, far more vulnerable. My instincts told me there wasn't time to wait. There wasn't just another domestic call. This was a situation that could turn deadly if we didn't act fast. I pulled out of my driveway and responded emergent. I wasn't going to let Monica become another name, another statistic, another woman failed by timing and hesitation. At 6:02 p.m., I arrived. A familiar sedan was parked in the driveway, Jamie Long's vehicle. She was sitting inside. As I walked past, she looked at me with wide, anxious eyes and said the word I'll never forget. Andrew's inside. When I arrived on scene, Officer O'Toole, my trainee, was right behind me. As I approached the split-level home, I saw Monica standing in the foyer, terrified. The front door was wide open, and I could hear crashing, yelling, and chaos inside. Then the words no officer wants to hear. He's getting a knife. Seconds later, I saw Andrew sprint up the stairs into the kitchen, and then the crashing grew louder. He was tearing through drawers, and I knew exactly what was coming next. I secured Monica out of the house and turned to confront what I feared would be the final seconds of my life. Andrew came charging down the stairs, full sprint, straight at me, wielding a large kitchen knife. The only thing standing us was a storm door, already damaged, the latch broken. He began slamming the blade against the glass. Full force strikes, not tapping, not threatening. He was attacking with the clear intent to kill me. Each time his knife hit the glass, I braced for the pain to shatter. I could see the rage in his eyes, not fear, not confusion, just raw, violent rage. Inches separate that knife from my body. I gripped the door with everything I had, knowing that at any moment it could give way. I tried to de-escalate. I tried to speak to him. There was no humanity in his response, only aggression. He was out of control. He was focused on ending my life. In that split-second moment, with a weapon pointed at me and no barrier worth trusting, I had to make a decision, use deadly force or try to reposition. I looked behind me and saw something that stopped me. Ran a point and a child near the stairs. I knew if I pulled my weapon and fired, I might hit one of them. So instead of protecting myself, I risked myself and I retreated to move into a tactical position. And just as I did, Officer O'Toole discharged his firearm, saving my life and possibly others. Afterwards, I helped render aid to Andrew because that is our duty as officers. But it does not erase what happened. It does not take away the fear, the trauma, or the reality that I came within inches of being stabbed to death while doing my job, while protecting others. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Andrew Sonnenberg made the choice to turn a residence into a battleground, to turn a knife into a weapon, and to try to take a life that night, mine. Since then, I've struggled with the psychological toll of that encounter, the weight of having to make a life or death decision in a split second, the memories, that knife slamming into the glass, the look in his eyes, I still hear it, I still see it. I ask you to understand I wear a uniform, but I'm human. I have a family. I have people who expect me to come home. And on December 16th, at approximately 40 seconds after arriving the scene, that was nearly taken from me by one man's violent and deliberate actions. The hardest part of the whole situation was it was a normal shift that day. I was just pulling into my residence, getting ready to see my family when I backed out of my driveway. I can't help but think I didn't call my wife or my kids when doing so. And if I got killed that night, the last thing they would have heard, the last thing they would have seen was my squad leaving the driveway after pulling in. No goodbye, no I love you, nothing, just taillights. The part that hurts the most, knowing what they would have felt, they would have had a lifelong sadness that wouldn't go away. They would always have those questions of what if, hold him accountable, not just for what he tried to do to me, but for the chaos, the trauma, and the danger he brought into that home that night, to Monica, to the child, and to my family. I'm asking, no, I'm pleading for you to impose a maximum sentence allowed under law. Andrew didn't just break the law that night. He broke a woman's sense of safety. He shattered trust, and he showed complete disregard for the protection order meant to keep Monica safe. His actions were calculated, violent, and terrifying. Monica could have been seriously injured or worse. The fear in her mother's voice, the scene we walked into, the trauma that Monica will carry, none of it will be undone. He was proven time and time again that he's a danger and to anyone who tries to protect her. The only way to ensure Monica's safety and to send a message that this kind of abuse will not be tolerated is to hold him fully accountable. Please, Monica, please, for Monica, for her family, for every victim who prays for the protection that comes too late, give Andrew the maximum sentence. He earned it. Officer Mike Sajak, badge number 435.
Thank you. Now, Mr. O'Toole, yours, please.
Yep.
And again, if you need to take a second, you may do so.
Okay. On December 16, 2024, a day that changed everything. It's my first day of
I'm
phase.
just going to ask you to slow down a little bit.
Okay.
You read Officer Zajak's very slow.
Okay.
And good. So please do that with yours.
Thank you. A day that changed everything. I was in my first day of phase 3 FTO. I was so new that I didn't even know if I had my badge on correctly. At 6:02 p.m., my career changed. My family changed. I changed.
Take as much time as you need. It's a little bit more difficult, I'm sure, reading your own versus somebody else's.
I was on the phone with my wife when the call of a domestic in progress came out. I told my wife that I loved her and I would be home soon. Never did I think that was almost the last words I'd ever tell her.
Officer O'Toole, you may take your time.
Never did I think I wouldn't be able to tell her I was okay, how much I loved her, or how I almost didn't come home. Being so new, I showed up to the wrong address. I thought I was going to get made fun of for it. Little did I know that mistake most likely saved my life. Mike and I arrived at the same time, hearing screaming of "he's got a knife." When I noticed Andrew coming down the stairs, knife raised above his head, coming for Mike and I. My only thought going through my head was my family and my partner's family. How could I explain to them that I failed in doing my duties of keeping my partner safe? I couldn't let that happen. Andrew, even as you were laying on the ground, you still showed no remorse, no care, no regret for what you were putting your kid and family through. You will never change. You refuse to take accountability for your actions. If it wasn't for Mike's bravery of holding the door, even in the face of imminent death, everything would have been different. If it wasn't for my first FTO kid teaching me and preparing me for my career ahead.
I'm going to guess by FTO, you mean field training officer?
Yes, my field training officer, Kate Barker. Teaching me and preparing me for the career ahead, everything would have been different. If it wasn't for me going to the wrong house, everything would have been different. Even though I protected people and did my job and came home, it has not been without its challenges. I've spent many sleepless nights replaying the night of December 16th in my head and wondering what my future would look like. That my family and I have shed many tears over an avoidable situation that could have costed my life or my partner's life. When people say life flashes before your eyes, I never believed them until that day. What I saw that day was my wife holding hands with a little girl. I knew if I didn't stop Andrew, I'd never get to see this future with my wife. I believe that was God telling me what he had planned for me. When I was at my lowest, I told my wife I couldn't see through this, and she asked me if I could see my next step and said, "Just take it. I will be there to catch you if you fall." That's what true love is. That night, I had to start my recovery journey. Through that, I got adopted into a new family, the law enforcement family, a family that checked on me continuously throughout my journey of coming back to the job, a family that has my back until the very end, a family that never let me be alone in my darkest hour, I can't thank the Burnett County Sheriff's Office, St. Croix Tribal, Siren, Webster, and Grantsburg Police Departments enough for their continuous support in my journey. Holly Hakes has helped me ground myself and the support that I've received and focusing on the future ahead. I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. This is where I belong. This is what I'm meant to be. I would do it all over again for my brothers and sisters in blue. I will keep doing it because it's my job to make sure everyone goes home safe. In the words of Mark Peterson, in the end, all that matters is I did the right thing. All I ask is that justice be served in a way that reflects the seriousness of what my family and I endured. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer O'Toole. All right, Mr. Schmidt. Argument and sentencing recommendation, please.
Thank you. A segment in here, I'm going to switch to playing some video footage for the court. I'll let the court know when I'm going to do that. I've already set it up with the clerks prior to the hearing.
Thank you for doing that.
The state's recommendation here is going to be towards the high end of the court's PSI recommendation. I'm going to be recommending 7.5 years initial confinement and 4 years extended supervision, which is the top end of that.
All right.
The driving factors of my recommendation are, I think, in order that I think the court should prioritize them, which is incapacitation, specific deterrence, rehabilitation, and general deterrence. I think it's most appropriate for me to start with my argument based off of the presentation by the officer here, reading Officer Zajac and Officer O'Toole's statements, by emphasizing how really dangerous this offender is. You heard some of that alluded to by Officer Zajac's statement. His criminal history is just riddled with either dealing convictions or battery convictions or read-ins. Most people who were talked to by both PSI writers, both the one who prepared the sentencing memorandum for the defense, as well as the DOC agent who prepared the courts, reference multiple incidences across Mr. Sonnenberg's life in particular, where Mr. Sonnenberg was in possession of knives and a need to disarm him. That's been like a recurring thing mentioned in those PSIs. The instant case involves him stabbing at and chasing 2 police officers before they really even had a chance to say much of a word to him. It was just wanton and pointless and potentially lethal. That's where I should start with it, the actual fact pattern here and the dangerousness of it. 2 tribal police officers were called with what initially sounded like a domestic call, an unwanted person call, a violating a restraining order call. You've heard some description of it already. As they approached the building, dispatch warned them over their radio of an ongoing shouting and crashing in there, as well as mention of a knife. As they approached the front door, Monica Martinson left the residence while warning the police that Sonnenberg was getting a knife. As she exits, when you watch Officer Zajac's body cam, Andrew Sonnenberg is at the top of the stairs with both knives in his hands, 2 of them. Officer Zajac closes what I think could be fairly characterized as a rather flimsy storm door as Sonnenberg barrels down the door or down the stairs and charges at the door and collides with it with full force and the momentum of charging down a flight of stairs. He changes his grip on the knives to get a firmer grip on the largest knife and to adjust it for downward thrusts towards the glass pane of the storm door. He swings in particular directly in the direction of where Officer Zajac is behind the door, bracing it with his foot to prevent it from opening, to prevent Mr. Sonnenberg from gaining access to himself as well as to Monica, who had just left the building. Zajac moves back from the knife thrust, moving back from the door, and immediately Sonnenberg bursts through the door with both knives, one in each hand, charges at the police, and is quickly stopped by the fast actions of Officer O'Toole. Because there was so much talk about this incident in the PSI, that's why I think the court really, to understand the dangerousness, as well as I think the fastness of it, how much happens in such a fast period of time, I'm going to need to play it for the court. I'm going to be playing the segment of this from both Zajak's perspective as well as O'Toole's. It's going to be less than 1 minute of video from each of their body cams. That's how much happened in such a short period of time. When we do suppression motions, when we analyze constitutional issues, something the Supreme Court really tells us is to consider the fast need to respond and make a decision, the snap judgments law enforcement needs to make for safety reasons every day. And I think this really emphasizes why that exists, why that's a matter of law and not just a matter of fact. I want the court to watch for the things I just described. I want the court to watch in particular for this one. So I'm going to start that now.
Before he does that, my client would like to leave the courtroom for the video playing.
Yes,
All right. Law enforcement comfortable with that and bringing him to the elevator or elevator room? All right, thank you. Then we can remove Mr. Sonnenberg for the playing of the video portion only.
I'm in the house with Monica.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
I hear a lot of screaming on the phone.
Having a knife.
Get out of the house.
She
Yeah.
says
My
he's
daughter's
grabbing a knife.
upstairs.
Let's go, nigga!
Hey,
Oh my God.
Let's go,
Andrew, stop. Stop. Stop.
nigga!
Just stop. Hey, stop.
Want a gunpoint?
One more time.
I'm in the house with Monica.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
I hear a lot of screaming on the phone.
Having a knife.
Get out of the house.
She
Yeah.
says
My
he's
daughter's
grabbing a knife.
upstairs.
Let's go, nigga!
Hey,
Oh my God.
Andrew, stop. Stop. Stop.
nigga!
Just stop. Hey, stop.
Want a gunpoint?
She says he's grabbing a knife.
Mike, you hear that?
Oh my God.
Hey, get out. Andrew, stop. 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 Just stop. Hey, stop.
Want a gunpoint? Want a gunpoint? Shots fired, shots.
When I watch that body cam footage, a number of questions race across my mind every time I watch it. First, what if Officer Zajac did not retreat when he did? What if that storm door panel, that flimsy glass there, what if that broke? What if Officer O'Toole did not fire and also chose to retreat? Would they have been running away from Mr. Sonnenberg? Would they have gotten away? What if the police were 5-10 minutes later on arrival? Would Sonnenberg have gotten out the knives anyways with Rana and Monica? He has a history of violence, in particular with Monica. With what Mr. Sonnenberg consumed, according to the PSI, the vodka, the cocaine, the fentanyl, the methamphetamine, there's no way to know. I don't think he could possibly know, and that is terrifying. For Monica, for his daughter, for the police, for literally anyone in the community who might have been coming into contact with him when he was doing that. His own family has complained that they've had to disarm him of knives themselves, that this is a recurring problem with him. Just for those reasons, probation, where the court has to start with every sentencing, cannot be the answer. Andrew Sonnenberg cannot be safely in the community for treatment. So let's talk about rehabilitation here for a second, because both PSIs talk about rehabilitation a lot. There's a lot of conversation about traumatic brain injury and injuries he suffered from terrible car crashes back 20 years ago, as well about his substance abuse. He himself sources all of his violence, all of his criminal history back to substance abuse. I have mixed feelings about that in this case because yes, he has the memory issues and the traumatic brain injury from the car crash. And yes, he's got the substance abuse issues. But when you read the PSI, both Sonnenberg and his family seem to have been very acutely aware of this. They've known about these issues for a long time, and they've persisted. And it doesn't matter how many terms of probation he's been on, how many sentences he's gotten. He's been evaluated up and down the wazoo by state and federal authorities for mental health and AODA. Decades of that kind of treatment, both on supervision and in a confined setting, has been to no avail. The awesome resources available through the federal system were not enough. They even had a reentry program, something that, quite frankly, would be a dream in Wisconsin, that Sonnenberg once failed out of and then the second time just refused to do. The reasons I have mixed feelings about the rehabilitation for this fact pattern is because, yes, you could look at Mr. Sonnenberg and say to yourself, if we can just get the right treatment for the traumatic brain injury and the memory issues, we know there are treatment paradigms for that. There's therapies, there's oversight. And if we can just treat the AODA issues, then if these really are the causes of all his behaviors, then that should work. That should end the criminal behavior. It should end the pattern of undesirable behavior. But look at that as a double-edged sword, because we can't have the arrogance to say it's going to work this time. Madness is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. The expectation should be, regardless of what the sentence is today, if we're just using logic and science and prediction and believing in the assessment tools, that Mr. Sonnenberg is likely to recidivate again, and it is likely to be violent because of this history, because of the history of non-success rehabilitating. And because when you look at issues like that, when a person has a 20, 25-year history of abusing substances and getting violent, it really brings to mind why in 2013 the legislature got rid of the voluntary intoxication instruction, because they just thought it was a bad idea. If you read the legislative materials for when they did that, it doesn't make any sense for a person to be alleviated from responsibility from choosing to use a substance that causes criminal behavior. Yes, there's the substance abuse disorder. It's harder for them, but there are a lot of people who are alcoholics, who are addicted to controlled substances, who don't have these issues. They don't have this level of burden on society. Because when it gets down to it on this one, the risk that, say, a drunk driver has to society is the speculative risk of maybe they'll hit someone. Or the risk of someone who is addicted to drugs might be, maybe if they have a history of stealing, they might go out and steal. The risk of Mr. Sonnenberg is different than a lot of other people, because the risk is of death and great bodily harm to others, of him working himself up into a state where he can be that dangerous to people. The instant offense, the elements of the offense, is literally that. It's risk. It's substantial and unreasonable risk of death or great bodily harm. That's what he did, and what caused it was him hanging out with a friend and consuming a large amount of alcohol and drugs, working himself up to violate a restraining order with his acts. That's what he was trying to do when police just arrived and he attacked them. That's why in this case, the solution has to be prison, and it has to be a substantial amount of prison. Prison is the only place where treatment can be safe for the community. Treatment is necessary in a confined setting here. I think even beyond that, I think not just treatment, I think Mr. Sonnenberg needs a controlled environment where he can't be a risk of death or great bodily harm to others, where he can practice the sobriety that's supposed to come after treatment. If he can't accomplish that in prison, he's not going to accomplish it outside. There is some suggestion in the PSI with statements from Sonnenberg and some other people that he shouldn't be sent to prison because he'll just use drugs in prison, which is really counterintuitive, because if a person is going to use drugs in prison where drugs are less available, where there's less control over, where there's less drugs available and more control over them, then they're obviously going to be greater risk of using drugs in the community. Just the incident case here involved polysubstance abuse. The community needs Mr. Sonnenberg to get treatment in a confined setting and practice that sobriety for a substantial period of time before he gets released. And prison is the place where that can happen. Because when Mr. Sonnenberg's out in the community, it's easy for him to get controlled substances, even if he were on probation. It would just be a simple drive to a liquor store or using old connections to get controlled substances. And when he uses those, he becomes unpredictable and potentially lethally dangerous to the community. Prison is a consequence, you can tell from the PSI, that is extremely negative to him, meaning he really doesn't want it. So it also has a strong deterrent effect to him. Finally, I have to speak to the gravity of the offense, which is, it's different than the other things I've described so far. I've argued for incapacitation in the sense that the more time Mr. Sonnenberg is away from the community, the more time it's protected because of the unpredictable, dangerous nature of him using controlled substances and the impracticality of preventing him from using controlled substances while on supervision. Specific deterrence, the long prison sentence, ratcheting up consequences. Rehabilitation, where it's a double-edged sword, where it seems if you could treat some of his underlying conditions, the substance abuse, the traumatic brain injury, he might be better, but the lack of success over 20 years would suggest it's perhaps hoping a bit too much to think that's likely to happen. And finally, the general deterrence, which ties into what I'm going to say about gravity of the offense. This is a person who charged the police with knives before the police had done or really said anything. The court just watched the body cam I played. The officers just arrived there. They hadn't even had contact with Mr. Sonnenberg. They're warned over the radio of shouting and knives. They hear shouting. They hear Monica leave the residence and mention knives. And Sonnenberg appears at the top of the stairs with one knife in each hand and just charges them. No discussion. No, let's talk about this. You heard Officer Zajac try to talk with Mr. Sonnenberg at the door after he charged. Just talk it out. Just give me the knife. Someone who wouldn't be able to do that. What happens if that's just a concerned neighbor instead? The risk here was above substantial. These officers, with the suddenness of what Sonnenberg had thrust them into, were clearly affected. You could see the reaction on Officer O'Toole's face. The emotion he had was raw and genuine. There's no doubt he suffered trauma from this incident. You could feel it in the words written by Officer Zajac. He was actually explicit about that. All of this came from what you have to determine at the end of the day, because we believe in freedom of will in Western tradition, a deliberate decision to consume large amounts of substances and consuming alcohol before working him up to violate that restraining order. He did traumatize the police. He could have traumatized Monica. He might have traumatized his own daughter, who was there and present in the house when this happened. Officer Cassidy, who's here today, helped come afterwards and take care of that. The gravity in this case is too much. This offender is too likely to recidivate violently. It was just nonsense that the Compass assessment said medium violent offense here. The court saw that that was not medium violent offense. The community has to be protected. Sonnenberg needs treatment in a confined setting, and he's already done so much programming that I think the goal of treatment in a confined setting isn't just to do the treatment and bounce him out as soon as possible, but also to make sure he stays there and can practice sobriety to show he's earned it. If he can't maintain sobriety in prison, he's obviously not going to do so out of prison. Finally, other people out there need to know that there will be severe consequences from attacking the police in this manner. There was no reason for this. The court saw that. General deterrence is needed. 7.5 years of initial confinement is needed. I'd ask the court to follow my recommendation. Thank you, and then I'll submit this at the end.
All right, thank you. Ms. Landgraf, I'm now going to turn to you for your sentencing recommendation and argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm not going to underscore the gravity or the seriousness of the offense. I think we all know how serious this was. The defense understands that this is a prison sentence. I heard the DA say that Mr. Sonnenberg doesn't want to go to prison. He's trying to not to go to prison. That's actually not the case. During our negotiations, we actually offered to resolve with a joint recommendation for a prison sentence. Mr. Sonnenberg knows that this is a prison sentence. When I started representing him in this case, he actually refused to look at the discovery. He was very focused on his hand and the trauma that he went through for being shot, because just like Officer Sajak said in his statement that he's not just a uniform, he's a person too. Mr. Sonnenberg is not just a uniform, a jail uniform, he is a person too. It's easy to sit here and say, what if this would have happened? What if that didn't happen? If whatever happened, there would be more serious charges. There would be different charges. That's not the charges that's before the court though. Luckily, the only person who was physically harmed was Mr. Sonnenberg, and he has long-lasting effects. He's never been shot before. And he and I have spent significant amounts of time talking about how the shooting really changed his perspective mentally. This was a whole different ball game for him. I have hope and faith that this incident was so life-altering that it will have an effect to have him make the changes that he needs to make. The PSI and I believe the DA both talked about how he immediately armed himself with a knife. The PSI said that he went into prison mode by grabbing a knife. Mr. Sonnenberg was a teenager when he was sent to a dozen years in the federal prison for dealing drugs in a tribal community with his family. His family was the one that was doing that. He was in and out of foster care for his childhood. He didn't finish school in his childhood. I don't know what society can expect from someone who has that kind of upbringing. He never had a role model in his family. Most of his family members, I think there were 13 or 14 of them that were sentenced to prison along with him. So he comes out of a dozen years in prison for drugs. And while he was in federal prison, he carried a shank. I mean, of course, was he supposed to? No, but I don't know what goes on in federal prison, but apparently that is what goes on in federal prison. And I think we can see that clearly play out if somebody is so messed up on drugs that the first thing they need to do is grab a knife and arm themselves. As the DA said, there was prior incidences with knives. And I agree that this has been a long time with these same issues and that his family knows about it. In fact, his family contacted law enforcement 3 days before this happened. Because Mr. Sonnenberg was kind of out of control, acting crazy. He armed himself with a knife. Mr. Sonnenberg told the police, I want to go to jail. I want to go where it's safe. I think that the alternate PSI kind of talks about that a little bit more, and that's some of the charges that he's facing over in Polk County still. But not that it underscores the importance or the seriousness of his actions on the 16th. I mean, his family did try to intervene. They did contact law enforcement. They took him to jail for the night. I know we can't change the criminal justice system into a mental health system overnight. But this is what happens when we don't have the tools in our society to handle situations like this. At this time, he was not on bond. He was not on supervision. So there was nothing over him that could have, I guess, held him in jail right away. So to prevent the incident on the 16th from happening, something that struck me that Deputy O'Toole said, he said, Andrew, you will never change. You never take responsibility. He is here. He took responsibility. He did not ask to go to trial. I believe he did with his previous attorney. He wanted to go to trial, but I know that before I became his attorney, he never looked at the discovery because he didn't want to. And when I told him that I would have to withdraw from representing him because I can't ethically go to trial if I know my client hasn't seen the evidence that the state has against him, he reluctantly watched the video. And from that second, his mood and his attitude about this case, 180-degree change. Many of our conversations end like this, or we have to stop because he really is remorseful. He really couldn't believe that Officer Sajak was there to help him. I don't think that he has a very good impression of law enforcement, unfortunately, and given his background and family involvement with law enforcement, I can see how that would be the product of that. But I literally physically saw the change in Mr. Sonnenberg, and I have every single time since I've met with him after he watched that video. And I think in the PSIs, he even tells the PSI that, well, my attorney showed me the video. I didn't know the officers were there to help me. He pled guilty to a very serious charge, and he is here and he is going to accept whatever the court deems is appropriate for him. Would the court be justified in giving him a max sentence? Sure. But Mr. Sonnenberg is not somebody who has had the tools that most people have growing up or even in their adult life. I'm not saying that he deserves a break, but I think that we need to recognize that and consider that. I disagree with him being evaluated previously in the federal and state systems. I've never seen a copy of evaluation. My client says that he was not evaluated before. So I think that a proper full psychological evaluation is absolutely necessary here. I don't know how far the court's authority can go with ordering a TBI evaluation. Mr. Sonnenberg, after we discuss the PSIs, he realizes how important that would be to have evaluated, and he is going to work with the tribe once he is released to get that evaluation if he cannot get it sooner or in prison. Like I said, the defense is expecting a prison sentence, and we're asking for 6 years, 3 years initial confinement followed by 3 years extended supervision. Thank you.
Thank you. Sonnenberg, I'm now going to turn to you. If you wish to provide a statement here today, you may do so. You are not required to, but this is your only opportunity to tell the court anything about this matter, this case, you, etc., that you wish to let me know before sentencing. It's also your opportunity to correct anything that you may have heard that was stated incorrectly, or anything in these two documents in front of me.
First off, I'd like to say sorry to the law enforcement officers for because I don't remember that night. And the video shows my kid's mom came up first and said my daughter's still in there. But before that, the cops were yelling my name to help me. And I got trauma, you know, and during my incarceration in the feds, I just indulged in drugs. There's more drugs in prison than in some towns. But this changed me, man. And then another incident happened when my daughter was at school. acted up and said what I said that night to the cops. I don't remember, but that's what made me change hearing that before I seen the video. And I'm sorry for the law enforcement officers to go through what they went through. And I know I need a psych eval, almost for myself, for my family, my daughter. And I'm not that type of dude. I just drugs and alcohol were in my system, and I lost my brother and my cousins. I still haven't grieved for my mom yet. I lost her in the hole. That's why I pleaded guilty, because the video shows the cops were trying to help me, and I didn't know. I black out, and sometimes I can't. Well, I got short-term memory loss, you know. But I know that it wasn't right. And I'm sorry for causing what they got to go through in life when they're kids, as well as me and my family and my kids. And sorry for the court to going through this, because I know it's their job to label me as a bad man. You know, I'm not that type of dude. I was out there singing with my dad, helping the kids. I never got even a psych eval in the feds, period. I didn't get no help. In the feds, you pay money, then you get certificates from the dudes that are running it. So where's the help, you know? You just pay through your things to get certificates. It's rugged in there, man. And USP Florence, United States Penitentiary Florence, I never been to prison in my life. And they sent me there. Right when I get there, they give me, it's called the bone crusher. I didn't know that. They said, you gotta live with this daily. And I was like, what? And I just sat back and watched and observed. And going through that throughout my bed and not getting any help with my head, because I was in a coma for a long time. The feds never looked into it. I never got his psych eval or none of that. They just threw me in them with the wolves. But I'm sorry for this night, man, and to the law enforcement officers. I'm not that type of dude, man. I'm a singer. I'm a dad. With that, man, I want to seek help for myself, because the only one can do it is myself. And that's for me, my family, and my kids, man. So hopefully, come on, you guys come to Apollo and make you and your family dance. And that's what I do, man. Thank you.
Right, thank you. The court watched 2 body cam videos, the footage of what happened that night from the 2 officers' different perspectives. They are completely different videos. They're the same thing, same time, happened at the exact same moment the videos were recording. But they were from 2 separate angles. Now, had I watched only Officer Zajak's video, it doesn't look as serious. You hear Officer Zajak in a very calm voice trying to bring you down, Mr. Sonnenberg, trying to de-escalate the situation. And from Officer Zajak's body cam, you see you coming down with a knife and then beating on the door. And then all of a sudden you see Officer O'Toole raise his weapon and shoot. From that body cam, if that was all the court had to view, it doesn't come across as serious. until you watch the different perspective from Officer O'Toole. Then you get a complete picture of what happened that night. You see Officer O'Toole approaching the house, hearing from dispatch, he's got a knife, walking up, seeing Officer Zajac at the door, only talking, trying to talk you down and de-escalate. We have a clear view, a clear picture of you with the knife. You're beating the door with your body. You take the knife in your hand and you stab the door multiple times. And in the video, you see just how weak and flimsy that door is. It's a cheap door. And you see the beating of the knife on the glass door, and that the door keeps trying to give way. And you not de-escalating. You in fact escalate even more, and you push through the door. Officer Zajac then has to run back because you are coming outside of the door with the knife in hand. Then Officer O'Toole reacts and responds in this split second. He has to think and evaluate the situation, and he shoots. Not to kill, to disarm. And you see that you were shot in the arm. You could have been shot dead. I'm not an officer. I don't know what they're trained to do. I'm going to tell you what I'm trained to do with my weapon if I'm in that situation is shoot to kill. You could have died that day. Officer Zajac and Officer O'Toole could have died or been seriously injured that day. Without Officer O'Toole's body cam footage, you don't get a complete picture of what happened. Because there was a domestic in progress. A domestic in progress. When those words come over, I'm sure an officer's radio, and they hear that, just as I heard from the officer's statement, domestic in progress, heart starts pumping and escalating faster and faster. You get a rush of heat through your body. Anxiety raises. Fear exists. Yet the officer needs to perform his duty and his job and to protect. The officer does not get to have those feelings at that moment. But it doesn't mean they don't exist. Officer Toole at least got the moment right before to walk in to call his wife. That could have been the last time he called his wife. Domestic in progress. We have MM, your former significant other, who has a domestic abuse injunction restraining order against you. We have your 6-year-old daughter and RL, the mother of MM. There could have been far more deaths that occurred that night. Domestic in progress. There has been a significant increase in officer-related shootings and/or officer deaths, responding to domestics in progress. And it's uncalled for. I have 2 officers who provided statements. And then I heard in one of them that the officer is human. They have feelings. That's true. Sometimes people forget that because they wear the uniform, they wear the badge, they have the gun, they have the taser. Sometimes the public sees them as robots. People who should just respond and act without thought. And to take all of the criticism, to take the spit, to take the urine, to take the punching, to take the hitting, to take the knives and the guns. Officers are human. They have a job to do, and they did it that night. They protected, they served that night. But for the fact that they are there, we have a woman and a child that are safe. But officers, I saw an officer cry. You don't see that very often. Officers experience trauma just like everybody else. They feel pain emotionally and physically. They are victims too. And when I heard your statement, and I heard the argument from your attorney about your perspective of what happened that night, I understand and I hear from your perspective what happened that night. That you were shot in the hand, you were shot through other places, that it was very traumatic for you, that it totally changed your perspective, that you're trying to heal from that night. There's nobody to blame for what happened that night. There's nobody to blame for your injuries but you. Every single step that was taken that day, every single action, by inhaling the substances, by drinking the intoxicants, by going over to a place you knew you legally were not permitted to be near people you were not permitted to be around, was calculated by you. Every single thing that happened that night, including getting shot in the arm, was caused by you. I've had the pleasure of sentencing Mr. Sonnenberg a handful of times. The first time Mr. Sonnenberg was in front of me, I remember distinctly and clearly. He was just released from either an extended supervision stay or a prison sentence. He was just out, got into some trouble, but then he found out and discovered he was expecting a child. I remember that clearly. And I remember how excited you were, Mr. Sonnenberg, how happy you were that you were going to be a dad. Because that's all you ever wanted, is what you told the court. Be a dad. Take care of your daughter. raise her and show her how to be a good member of the community, to teach her your tribal culture and your experiences and those things. I remember clearly. That time, he told me, this time, prison has changed me. This time, I have a daughter and I have a purpose. I'm a different man. Those were words that came out of your mouth, I recall. And yet, you did something awful that night. And I'm not saying I'm not saying towards the officers. You put your 6-year-old daughter in harm's way. Your 6-year-old daughter, who, for the love of God, I don't know if she's here supporting you or not supporting you. She was here today. She would be in here today hearing all of these things about you, seeing a video that literally took me aback. Cold and calculated. It doesn't matter that you are under the influence of alcohol or drugs. That's an excuse. And in your statement, I continue to hear excuse after excuse after excuse. Prison made me this way. Going to prison, they don't change, they don't help, they don't direct. And in your statement to PSI author, when asked if the justice system works, you said, fuck no. You believe the only thing that they can do, the system, is help you before you get out. But they don't even help you in there. You believe the initial charges are excessive. You want to withdraw your guilty plea based upon dissatisfaction with legal counsel and how your case is handled. I don't know if that's prior to Ms. Landgraf or during Ms. Landgraf. It's got to be during Ms. Landgraf because I accepted your plea. She handled your plea. So these were statements you made. You made after your plea. After this time, you had the poof epiphany that you did wrong and that the officers were there to help you. I didn't see an epiphany. I didn't see accountability. I see someone who's trying to dodge responsibility. Someone who's trying to pass the buck. I understand you had a very traumatic life. I read very traumatic life. I've heard from you in various other times, the trauma that you've experienced. What can society expect from the upbringing he had? Well, we don't expect someone to be a violent offender. We don't expect somebody to not take advantage of the services and the programs that the community has to offer. We don't expect somebody to pass the buck and say that it's the system who needed to test for a TBI or a psych eval or do those things. We expect that the system is there to punish and it's there to rehabilitate. You can only rehabilitate if you choose to do that. Change your habits, change your associates, change yourself. That's the only way. And prison isn't easy. It's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be a punishment. We all agree that this is not a prison, or this is not a probation case. This is a prison case. That's right there on the table. I have an alternate PSI recommending 3 to 4 years of initial confinement, 4 to 5 years of extended supervision. I have a DOC recommendation of 5 to 7.5 in with 3 to 4 out. I have defense recommendation of 3 in and 3 out. All three very different views and takes on the case. But they all agree it's prison. Because correctional treatment has not yet helped you, but the community, you have not availed yourself of the services in the community to rehabilitate. And this was an extremely, extremely serious offense. I have to take all of the victims into account, all of them, not just the law enforcement, MM, your daughter, RL, all of them. I have to take the community into account as well. Will the community be safe with you in it? At this juncture, it's no. After watching the video and knowing the facts of the case, your attorney is correct. You were not charged with anything. I mean, it's serious, a Class F felony and some misdemeanors thrown in. But it's surprising that you weren't charged with something more serious from watching the videos and knowing the potential harm that everybody was in that night. But you did accept, you did plead guilty. You pled guilty to a serious Class F felony. You're here knowing that you're going to be sent to prison. That's one thing. Everybody can agree that December 16th is a terrible, rotten, awful day. And nothing can change that. No magic wand, can't take away the impact on the victims. It can't take away the trauma that your daughter has experienced. She needs therapy. She needs therapy. I do have to look also at deterrence, specific deterrence, as Mr. Schmidt argued in his statement that enough's enough, this was violent, this was serious. Mr. Sonnenberg needs to be deterred from doing this type of conduct again. But not only that, general deterrence. Enough's enough. When are we going to respect law enforcement? Are they always right? No. Am I always right? No. We have lost respect in our justice system. Yep, there are things that are broken. I see it every day. There are things that this county is trying to do to improve that and to make it better. One thing is we need more respect. We need to follow the rules. We need to follow the law. So the gravity is very serious. I wish I could say that you had rehabilitative prospects that you could receive and do on your own behalf and without needing the assistance of prison. but I can't see that, at least at this point. I know one driving force is your daughter. Be better for your daughter. Be better for your daughter. Because I have seen your softness. I have seen that you are a caring individual when you're not drinking, when you're not using substances, when you're not acting without thinking. What the court needs to focus on the most here in this case is the seriousness of the offense, as well as the needing to protect the public. And this involved an officer shooting, officer-related shooting. You got shot. But it was an incident that escalated to the necessity to do that. So it's very serious, again, with the other victims. So with that, and needing to protect the public and to ensure that the public understands the severity of these types of incidents, the court is going to sentence you to 7.5 years of initial confinement, 5 years of extended supervision. It is the max sentence because I believe that this escalated to the max. That video was critical for the court's perspective. Black and white, reading on paper what occurred and hearing arguments that are, let's face it, each one-sided, the state-sided, the defense-sided. It doesn't give me as much as watching that video. So it's a max sentence. Anything less would unduly depreciate the seriousness of this offense. You are not eligible for challenge incarceration program, and due to the severity and violence of this offense, you are not eligible for the earned release program.
Does the court mean substance abuse program too?
That's all of it. No early release programming, no substance abuse, no early release. This is violent. Conditions on extended supervision, absolute sobriety, no use or possession of any illegal drugs, substances, or paraphernalia. Regular alcohol and drug testing. Regular means at least 2 to 3 times a week. A TBI evaluation, a psych evaluation. Follow all recommendations. We're asking for no contact with MM. Ms. Bauer?
Yes.
No contact with MM. You can have contact with your daughter through letters. You can contact your daughter through letters. Your daughter can talk to you on the phone, on video calls, all of those things. Mr. Sonnenberg.
Yeah, can I speak?
What?
Can I speak?
Yes.
Yeah, me and my baby mama wanted to get married, and that's what's
That
good.
causes significant, serious concern with the incident that occurred here with having the restraining order, all of those things. At least at this moment, it's a no contact. She
Well,
has to go through programming in order for the court to do no abusive contact. I'm not going to hear her on that point right now. I guess I will hear her on that point. However, the court still has its reasoning for any case like this, any domestic. Both parties must go through programming. And now you reminded me, domestic abuse programming. Completion of a domestic abuse program. $518 in fines and fees. Court will enter a civil judgment against you. If you don't pay it, the court will issue a warrant, 6 months in jail you could sit. This is a felony, no use or possession of a firearm for life, no voting in any election until your civil rights are restored. How many days of jail credit? Not including today.
246.
246 days of jail credit. Ms. Bauer, the court will amend or allow the Department of Corrections, well, I will amend upon proof that she has completed the domestic abuse program. It's no contact until I get proof of the program. But you may still, again, have contact with your daughter through letters, through calls, through those things.
Okay, could I get visits from them in prison? Because my baby's going through, and me being away from her is gonna give her more trauma. That's my life right there.
Quite honestly, I don't think that my conditions on extended supervision are applicable while you are in custody. So you can double check with your DOC agent.
What does that mean?
Means when you're in prison, I don't think my extended supervision conditions of no contact are applicable. I don't think they apply until you are released. However, I'm still not going to change it to no abusive until I have confirmation of a program.
I'm not gonna abuse nobody from here on out. I just want visits from my daughter because that's gonna help me. She
It
needs
will help you.
me in her life.
I 100% agree, Mr. Sonnenberg. She needs you healthy. She needs you sober.
Yeah.
She needs you to be present in her life to the best of your ability.
So I can,
She needs you to make changes.
yeah, I'm gonna. So she can come see me in prison, like when I get there.
Yes.
Thank you. Both of them?
MM would need to get confirmation from the prison or from DOC that these don't apply in the prison setting. It's my belief they don't, but I'm not confident on that 100% because DOC is the one who enforces them.
It's gonna be a hard time not seeing my babies.
However, again, Ms. Bauer's going to talk to her about the program. She can get that done within a couple weeks,
Okay, Your
and it
Honor.
can be no abusive.
Thank you.
I just need to ensure, especially due to the violent nature of this incident involving her and your child and a knife and a very irate Mr. Sonnenberg, I need to ensure that they are protected and they are safe too.
They will be. You won't hear nothing from me except how good I'm gonna be.
That's what I want to hear. And I want you to be good. I want you to do those things to improve yourself. We've talked about this before.
Yeah, but being shot and being here, I got shot right here. A little bit to the more, I wouldn't be here, but I'm here for my daughter. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry for the law enforcement, what they gotta go through. I'm sorry.
Would've, could've, should've. Sorries don't fix anything or change
Yeah,
anything.
no,
Action does.
yeah.
Change yourself.
I'm gonna.
Change yourself, and then law enforcement will be happy. The court will be happy. I believe that covers all the conditions. I need your DNA. You're going to provide that. I gave jail credit. I gave the amount owed. Said the felony. What am I missing, Mr. Schmidt?
Nothing from me.
What am I missing, Ms. Landgraf?
Judge, I don't believe you're missing anything, but I would respectfully ask that you reconsider finding him eligible for substance abuse program. I understand that inmates are eligible when there are 4 years or less remaining on their sentence, but given the court's ruling on that, I think the court could order that he could be eligible if he only has 2 years of incarceration left, so he has some kind of program before he gets out.
Reconsidered, denied. A sentencing court can determine that a defendant is ineligible for these early release programs if the inmate, even if the inmate otherwise meets all of the necessary requirements and would be eligible per DOC. However, I'm again denying his ability to participate in early release due to his record, due to the violent nature of this crime that is before the court today. Denied.
Nothing further.
One last thing, Mr. Sonnenberg.
Yeah, I like to appeal this because
Good, appeal, 20 days. Talk to your attorney. We're done. Escort him, please. We will go on the record in the matters 25 SC 142 Herman Smoody versus Victoria Mott and 25 SC 90 Herman Smoody versus Victoria Mott. I believe that 25 SC 142 also contains Mr. Smoody's wife, Tina. So she's sitting with him at this time. This is a joint hearing due to the fact that we are dealing with the same parties and some crossover issues. This is an eviction and a replevin, I believe, or a small claims action requesting a return of the car or money. So we're here today with, we have Herman Smoody and Tina Smoody in person without counsel. We have Victoria Mott in person without counsel. The court did receive a filing or something this morning that I had reviewed from you, Ms. Mott, where you're asking to change venues. There's a couple reasons why it's denied. One, you have no proper purpose or reasonable basis to ask to request to change venues in cases like this. Second, it's very untimely. And then again, according to Wisconsin statute 801.51, it's completely discretionary for the court. Unless there is a conflict of interest, there is none. And even to change venues, that wouldn't be possible. It would just be changing judges. So there's no proper reason to change venues to ask to go to Washburn County.
My concern with that was just because of the recent history with my criminal. I feel like it's hard.
No, that happens all the time.
Okay.
All the time.
Okay.
All right, so that is denied. And so we are here on Mr. Smoody and Ms. Smoody's claims against Ms. Mott. And so before we begin, I'm going to have all parties please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in.
Do you swear that the testimony you're about to provide to the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
You may be seated. Let's start with, we do have the eviction matter. So let's start with that.
Your Honor, I have a question also. I thought at the last hearing with the replevin, you were dismissing that because we already had
No, I
small
wasn't
claims.
dismissing it. I was just moving it to today.
Oh, I didn't know you were joining them. Sorry.
Yes, so that it can be heard
Okay.
today. Because I did hear some of it in the eviction matter, which at the time, it was very weird. And it did not connect to the eviction at all. All right, Mr. Smoody, we're going to start with the eviction matter. So this is your case, you have the burden.
She's been evicted. I'm happy with it. I don't have anything further.
Oh, so that's all you're asking for in the eviction?
Yes.
Well, all right, then I'm dismissing the matter. Matter is dismissed.
Even though I
because-
would like to counter.
And I can hear your
Okay.
counterclaim, but I'm
Yeah,
dismissing
okay.
his
Okay.
eviction. All right, so
Okay, so I guess my background on the whole situation, because I know before I was never able to testify or anything.
all of that went away. I wiped the slate clean with the last hearing because I knew that we would need far more time. And
Yep,
so we were out to start anew here today, but you are no longer in the place. And so the eviction is moot, but I will hear your counterclaim.
that doesn't make, okay.
What?
And that just doesn't make sense to me because I thought we were here, and then there was the other claims in it, in my counterclaim. And now that, I don't know, it just doesn't make
I'm
sense to me,
saying
sorry.
you were out of the house, so
Yep,
I
yep.
cannot evict you unless you want an eviction on your record. I could do that.
No, I'm
that's why I'm
just trying
saying-
to understand, sorry.
His matter to evict you, gone, but you have a counterclaim in there, which I'm hearing right now.
For money owed, okay. Well, because sorry, I just got to organize myself because everything I had was against, to show where I was overcharged on rent and everything, so I guess.
This is your time to present. If you believe that they or Mr. Smoody owes you money, this is your time to present that.
Well, yeah, at least, can I approach?
For the house, yes.
Can I approach?
These are exhibits. And you have a copy for Mr. Smoody?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So these are handwritten pay stubs for Mr. Smoody. So the whole entire situation, I was being overcharged on rent. And so I also have emails that correspond and state, and I brought in blank calendar, so it's a little easier to follow along with what I paid and where I paid. And that's the whole issue arose because I was being overcharged on rent. So I used to work for them. In the beginning, in March, I first confronted Jerry about it. I'm gonna approach again. That's where I first brought up that he was overcharging me on rent because I had made an $800 deposit February 19th. And so that covers 8 weeks of rent. At that point, I was only 2 weeks behind. So with it being 2 weeks behind, there's still 6 weeks.
Okay.
They,
I know nothing about any agreement that you have, so I don't know if the rent was supposed to be $800 a month.
it was $100 a
So
week.
that's what you have to tell me.
Okay, sorry.
I need to know who, where, what, when, and why. That's okay.
So our agreement was I would pay $100 a week and I paid half of the utilities from September until May 5th when I quit working for them. I quit working for them because I was being overcharged on rent and brought the issue up multiple times to Jerry, which he continued to just take $100 out of my paychecks, which are on those handwritten pay stubs. I was in the process of purchasing a car from them. And so the remainder of my paycheck outside of that $100 a week, he would take towards the car. And I know on those exhibits, it says loan, but it was actually for the car. So when we kept having the issue with him overcharging me or continuing to take rent out when I didn't owe it yet, that's finally May 5th is when I was done. I quit. Like,
I'm not seeing any documentation of $100. Oh, I see one for rent on.
Yep, I believe it should be on there somewhere. It'll say rent and then 100.
Oh,
That's a deduction supposed to be.
all right. Okay, I see it now.
And then, so that was the whole issue that started the eviction is I quit working for them. So then instantly they wanted me out. They stopped letting my child and I use the restroom in the home. Instantly, I rented 2 bedrooms, mind you, in the home. And then once it got warmer out, I was moving into the loft above the garage, which in the emails you see, or in these ones, you can see where Jerry referred to me renting the loft. I know in the forms they filed last time we were here, it gave an itemized list
Well,
of.
they're not admitted. I don't have them to look at them, so you can refer to them, but they're not going to be evidence. I don't have them.
So I guess all I can say then is since I stopped working for them, clearly they were taking more money and then we started the eviction process. I didn't feel comfortable handing them more money at that point for the car. I acknowledge that, yes, I did under those still owe them $950 for the car, which I am aware of. Like, I've never said that I didn't. I just wasn't comfortable handing them more money when there was this dispute about how in the first claims with these that aren't here now, they were saying that I owed all this other, like, they came up with all these other things that I owed for when I, didn't.
Ms. Mott, I know that this is causing you to be a little bit anxious
Mhm.
because that's what court does to people. Take a breath, and I need to hear everything from the start to the finish. Right now, I'm just getting a whirlwind of things said, so it's a bit confusing. Right now, I'm just trying to concentrate on the rent, and if you say that you've overpaid. So I would need to know from the first month you've moved in, if it was paid, if it wasn't, if more was taken out, if more wasn't, and where you are on that as it relates to the rent and the utilities only.
Well, by the time that I moved out after the eviction, that was pretty much through when I was overpaid on, in that sense, if that makes sense.
It does not.
So even though I quit May 5th, I was still okay on rent for 4 or 5 more weeks. There were 6 other payments out, that they took out of my check, even though I had that $800 in there. Instantly, they started charging me the $100 out of my paycheck. So
How much do you think you've overpaid in rent? Not talking about the car. How much do you think you've overpaid in rent?
By when I quit, by that point or by the time I moved out?
When you moved out, because that's where we're going to.
2 weeks I still had left.
So you believe that they owe you $200, that you've overpaid $200.
Yep, and then they packed mine and my child's room up before the eviction was even started, and I have video evidence for that.
I need one thing at a time. Where can you show me that you've overpaid $200?
Well, now it's just kind of hearsay, just because we're so far past the eviction. But if you,
Hearsay is a statement of somebody else, not the parties. So I just need to know if you have documentation to show that you paid rent, that you have your pay stubs that show that, or in his handwritten thing, because I'm not understanding. I'm seeing April 11th paid. That's the only date I'm seeing on this ledger. Otherwise, I see no dates.
I know and I brought that issue up to Jerry as well, because I didn't like that there weren't dates on it, on them either. They're handwritten. Where are my taxes that were taken out of it? You know, can I approach, please?
Yes.
So I'm just gonna use one calendar, so hopefully we do the timeline. And this was the first, Jerry, when I kept raising the issue of.
Wait until you're back to your table, okay? Mr. Smoody, as it relates to rent only,
Right.
just rent.
Can I approach?
No,
Except-
it's not your time to testify right
Oh,
now.
I'm sorry.
As it relates to rent only, do
Yeah.
you believe that Ms. Mott overpaid $200, or do you contest that?
Absolutely not. I contest that.
Okay, all right, so Ms. Mott, now you can show me how it adds up that you paid $200 more and you moved out, I believe it said June 27th.
I moved out June 10th, and I have body cam footage of me there with the U-Haul and a statement that Jerry made to the officer, because they took the plates off my car. And the original agreement was when I purchased the car that I paid the insurance, which is listed on those pay stubs as well, the insurance payments.
Oh, so you're saying you paid through to June 27th? That's what you're
Yep.
saying. Okay. You to show me with your paycheck that he deducted money.
When he wrote the rent 100, that means that's a deduction according to him. So
Is this your paycheck?
those are my pay stubs. Yes, those are what I got for pay stubs. Correct. And
Not
that's
legal in
Jerry's,
Any way, shape, or form.
that's Jerry's handwriting
And this is for working at a restaurant?
at their cafe, yes.
A handwritten?
And then he would take the car payments out of there as well.
So, Mr. Smoody, you didn't give real paychecks that showed deductions, like legitimate deductions and taxes and all of those things?
I did not to Tori because she owed me the money, so I was just taking the cash as she worked. My other employees get paychecks.
So you're paying her under the table?
Well, I guess so.
So she didn't have to claim it either? So you didn't have to claim paying an employee and she didn't have to claim getting the income?
I guess so.
That's all illegal. On both ends, it's illegal.
And my current employer, she had helped me out with money for other things. And I still get a pay stub. She takes it as a deduction on my pay stub. I get, you know what I mean?
I'm already gonna tell you, with regards to the payment of your wages as well as the documentation of the rent, nobody has any proof. This shows me nothing because there are no dates. There's nothing, there's only one date of April 11th. Otherwise, I have no dates. I have no real confirmation that any money was paid or taken out. This could be from 2024. The only date that resembles a date or numbers that resemble a date is 4/11.
And I wrote that just guesstimating, trying to figure out.
Again, I'll receive exhibit 1 because it's in Mr. Smoothie's handwriting, but I'm gonna tell you, it tells me absolutely nothing, so it doesn't confirm, deny, anything like that. So it's useless.
So I guess I don't know. I had anticipated this going totally different with the, original, and I have everything broke down for that. So it's hard for me to like backtrack on everything, if that makes sense. And how that but I guess they can just continue with the car claim. But I do have the concern of the self-help eviction from them packing my things before the eviction process was even started. And I have video evidence, time and date stamped of Tina going through and packing my belongings.
Okay, so I need to look at your petition or your counterclaim. So what are you asking of the court?
Well, I quit my job because he was taking money he shouldn't have been. So essentially that's loss of wages. My son lost his home. I know it wasn't a forever home for us. Like we were going to move out eventually. And then just because I wasn't going to work for them anymore, I never said I wouldn't pay rent, but they wanted me out instantly because I wasn't helping them anymore. So there's loss of wages there. I moved to Minnesota and then they took the plates off my car. And like I said, when I was there getting my belongings with the U-Haul, I have body cam footage of Jerry telling the cop that he was short circuiting me, taking the plates off in hopes that I would get pulled over and the car get impounded and them take it.
Okay.
So that, so now I had a car that I couldn't legally be driving. And then having to come back for court so much, I got stuck around here again.
So what is your claim for? What are you claiming that they did?
The self-help eviction. They had no grounds to evict me, really. Like, yeah, they didn't want me there, but that isn't technically grounds. I wasn't behind on money.
We didn't have a written lease.
Yep.
So and you were paying weekly. So they only needed to give you 1 week's notice.
I paid monthly all the time. Except for
again,
when
I don't know.
Right.
It doesn't show. It shows weekly to me. And then you even.
But those were the overpayments that crossed over. Sorry, my 800.
Your testimony said, and I wrote it down. You paid $800 deposit on February 19th. And then from there, you were to pay, your words, not mine, not his, $100 a week and half of the utilities.
No, that wasn't from there. That when I moved in, that's what he wanted was $100 a week, half the utilities. But I always paid mine monthly.
It doesn't matter. It's what he wanted. $100 a week. So it was weekly. It's a weekly rental situation. Okay. So now you're asking the court, you want damages because they packed your stuff up.
They kicked my son out of his room before the eviction process even started. That's not legal. They can't do
Well, I'll let you know if it is, but you have
it's a self-help eviction. Sorry.
Stop.
Sorry.
You just want to talk, and you don't let me say anything. You don't let me tell you what you're telling me isn't telling me anything.
Sorry.
Okay? I need to know specifics. I get that you believe it's a self-help eviction. I get that you believe that all this is illegal. I can't make a determination. Only I get to say that. And again, you talk over me. My court reporter right here, she has a very hard job. She has to take down every single word. She can't do that when people talk over. Okay? So just take a breath and let me ask my questions and tell you what I need to know.
Okay.
Dates are very important. So I don't have any dates of which any of this occurred. Again, the who, the where, the what, the why, the when.
The when would be May 16th, 2025 is when she was going through my room. I don't know how to get it to play on this, like to transfer it over.
I would have to, I have to give you permission to do that.
Okay, could I do that,
First, I
please?
need to, you need to tell me what it is you want to play.
I want to play a video of Tina packing my belongings before the eviction was filed.
All right. And so you're all hooked up.
I
correct?
think so, yes. This is the body cam footage from the day I went and got my belongings and them making me give the plates off my car in order to get my belongings. It's hard to hear, I guess. Sorry.
Well, no, as long, if you have the title, she can't, I mean, she ain't gonna be able to go and do it. I mean, you don't need plates to get it titled. You have to have the title to get it titled.
Right, that's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. So I have the title.
Yeah, she ain't gonna be able to do nothing.
Yeah, so she can't take the car. And if she drives it,
Well, if she drives it, she'll get stopped with no plates, but
Yeah.
I mean, she can take it wherever she wants with no plates. I mean, it's not,
it doesn't matter then if she gets stopped. If she gets stopped, what, do they tow it then somewhere?
well, they may just give her a ticket and say, get it registered. So,
And she has no way of getting it registered.
yeah, with no title. Yep.
So by getting the plates, I'm short circuiting.
Yeah, I mean, several people drive around with no plates on it.
Yeah.
I mean, they eventually get stopped and get tickets, but
Especially Minnesota or.
they'll find it. I mean, they'll find it if that's where she's going. Where is she planning on moving to?
Princeton.
Okay.
Just a moment, sorry. So this is May 16th at
You have it documented? Yes, May 16th.
packing my things. This was before the eviction was filed, I believe. And then with the car, I gave total at the end of me ending my employment, I had paid $3,300 for the car. I gave him $2,500 up front. At which,
I just want to stick with the rent first and the eviction.
I feel like the rent, I don't know,
Well,
because
the rent, we've already addressed the rent, but your other issues, you said self-help eviction, you said other damages. So what are you asking? I know May 16th, you said, I got one date of May 16th, 2025 with the video, she packed her stuff up.
I don't have proof of it though, so that's why I'm hesitating, because it's like, is it worth saying it, you know?
Well, you can say it.
Um,
It goes to me to determine the weight and if
Okay.
it is credible or all of those things.
Okay, before I quit May 5th, I had started staying in the loft, I believe, the end of April. And so my son's room was still in the home. But then my son started staying in the loft with me instead of in the home, and they packed his belongings up on, I believe, and threw them all in the garage.
When did you move into the loft? In April.
I believe the end of April. I don't have the exact date. I didn't even, I
Let's
never
just say
anticipated anything.
last week of April, but then she packed her stuff up from the house bedroom, May 16th?
Yep, May 16th. Correct. But before then, she had already removed my son from his room.
But he was already living in the loft with you?
But that wasn't intended. Like they just, like, one day we got home and his things weren't in his room anymore. And then I believe their granddaughter moved into that room.
How long did your son stay in the loft with you before his things were moved out?
Maybe a night or two. Because he kept asking to stay the night up there, and you know what I mean? And so he had his room. He didn't need to. And because why would I have him sleep on a couch when his bed was set up in the, in the house? That's why I paid for the bedroom. Where the heck did that just go? Sorry.
Well, he could have wanted to just be with you if the loft is outside and and his bedroom was in the house.
Yeah. Well, we hung out there most of the night anyways, up until bedtime, or we'd be out to dinner. And then Jerry and Tina, up until I quit working for them, they would help watch my child so I could work because I was working multiple jobs. No, I can't find the one piece of paper I had. Okay, so it was May 14th, they packed Zayden's room up on him. And then on May 13th, they turned the power, we returned to the loft and the power was shut off to the loft. And the garage door was locked, so I couldn't turn the breaker back on. I actually made a police report that day. I called the police to get it turned back on. And then as soon as I spoke with one of the officers, they must have called them, and then it was switched back on. Again, I believe that was before the eviction process started. May 20th or 16th is when, May 20th is when she packed all of my, like, everything out of the room and then removed the camera and everything. And then May 6th is when they stopped letting us use the restroom and the shower in the home. After I had just paid a week prior $70 to have the septic pumped. And that's about all I have on that. I guess it's kind of.
Ms. Moody, in this case, you can't help him anymore. If you're going to be a witness, he can call you up here to testify, but this is his case alone.
Okay. She moved in on September 7th. And then she was going to stay at the house while we went to Arizona for the winter. And prior to us leaving, we had a meeting. I took them down and bought them lunch and laid out the rules for the time that we were to be gone. And the very last thing on the rules says, have somewhere else to live by April 1st. So she knew that she had to be out of there by April 1st. When we ended up getting back about a month and a half earlier than we intended. We came back the middle of February. And because we're nice people, we said she could stay until school was out, which we allowed her to do. In the meantime, our daughter had gotten into some trouble and had her kids taken away. So we ended up with two of her kids, a 15-year-old boy and a 17-year-old girl. We were trying to get full custody of them or guardianship of them. CPS said we could not get guardianship as long as she was there because she had a conviction on her record and could not be around children. So that's why we were so desperate to get her out of there. We tried to move her. She wouldn't go. So then I filed for eviction and then it was granted. The last day that she was paid for rent was May 2nd. I have the documentation to prove that if need be, but she stayed then an additional 6 weeks without paying any rent whatsoever or anything on utilities.
What about moving her out of her bedroom?
The bedrooms. We
Again,
we need.
Same thing to you. If I'm talking, you're not. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So I need to know about the packing up of the bedroom she rented for her in the house, the bedroom for her son. I need to know if you stopped her from using the bathroom as well as the shutting off the electric.
Yes. So the original agreement was she only was going to have one bedroom. She was supposed to be in there with her son. Well, then it ended up her boyfriend moved in there and then she moved in and we didn't charge her anything extra for the second bedroom. We were desperate to have a place for our grandchildren to stay. They were having to share a loft of, 17-year-old girl, 15-year-old boy sharing a loft. Well, teenagers like some privacy. So we really needed the rooms. So I called the deputy sheriff out and asked him what I could do about it while we were waiting for court to get her evicted. He said,
No, can't tell me what he said, and I'm gonna tell you, not only is that hearsay, he's not a lawyer.
okay. Well, we were told to take pictures.
Tell me what anyone told you
Okay.
to do. You can tell me what you did.
Okay, we took pictures and documented everything. And then packed it up and moved it out to the garage so that we would have those bedrooms available for our grandchildren.
Did you talk with Miss Mott?
Yes, I actually have it in writing, but I didn't make copies. But where I told her that she had to get her stuff out, and I verbally told her a dozen times or more.
When?
Every day I would tell her, Tori, you need to pack up. You need to get your stuff out of here. I need these rooms.
What date?
Well, from the time May 2nd, when she was last paid through for the entire month, I was trying to get her out for more than a month. I was trying to get her out of there. And then she voluntarily moved out to the loft
Why do you believe she voluntarily moved out?
so that she could be with her boyfriend. And at that point, babysitting her son was left to us. I'd have to get him up for school in the morning. I'd have to meet him for the bus when he came home, have to feed him, clean up behind him. That went on for over a month.
So tell me about this loft and the discussion to have her move out to the loft.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Tell me the discussion about the loft, when she moved out to the loft. What was that discussion?
I believe she told my wife that she was going to move out
Tell
to
me
the,
what she told. Well, you can tell me.
well, all I know is that she voluntarily moved out there. That I did not tell her she had to or could to. I didn't want her in the loft, to be honest. I wanted her gone. I didn't want her in the loft, so I would not have told her to go there. And she was well aware of CPS and the situation that we were
I
with.
don't want to hear about CPS because you don't have a CPS worker to testify.
Okay.
So I have nothing to go off of anything that would
Okay, Your Honor.
to that matter.
Okay.
All right, is that all you would like me to know on, what about the electricity?
Okay, the sheriff showed up at my place. And so we went into the garage. I built that garage, so I know the garage. There's 8 breakers in that. And my family works with me on that. I have a little bit of a notice if there's a possibility I'm gonna have to
Again,
run.
you're gonna give me excuses as to why a landlord withheld the bathroom. That's not in.
She was already out. She was in the loft. She was no longer in the house.
Is there a bathroom in the loft?
No, but there's a bathroom outside. There's a porta potty.
Porta potty. Is there a shower?
No,
Okay. So you withheld restroom facilities, including the ability to be able to clean herself and her son? Because you have IBS? Yes?
yes.
All right. All right, so I have one question.
Yes.
When was school done for your son?
I believe it was June 4th. It was the first week of June.
Okay. Do you have any other information you would like me to know?
I would just like it stated that I was there when they turned the power back on and no officer was there with them to turn that power on.
That's not relevant. That
Okay,
doesn't matter to me
sorry.
one way or another if an officer was there or not there.
Mhm.
Okay. So now I've heard that matter. Now we're going to move on to the vehicle matter, and then I will make a joint decision in order. Vehicle.
Okay. Tori was working for us when we came back from the cafe, or from Arizona, working at the cafe. And one day until that lien was done. So the only way I could sell the car is if I got the $4,500 up front. When we got back, my daughter did not have it. She was going to use her taxes, did not get enough from her taxes to pay me. So I basically took the car back from her. So then I told Tori, well, you can use the car, lend it to you to go back and forth to work at your mama's. Because we needed her to be able to get there, obviously. We needed her for work. Well, Tori, like she does, pushed the envelope. Pretty soon she was using it to drive to her second job. Then she was using it to drive to Rice Lake to go shopping. Drive to Rice Lake to go shopping. And so I was the front. He said, then I had 5 because I didn't get 100, and then another 500 2 or 3 days later, to a total of $2,500 that she got. And then when I asked her again, she said, I don't have any more money. And I said, I can't sell you the car until I have the full 4,500. I got to pay off this lien. You breached the deal. And so she said, well, I don't have any more. I said, well, then I need the car back. So she refused to give it to me. So I called the deputy sheriff again, and he came out, and I said, how do I get this car back? Can you make her give me my car back?
Yeah, I'm going to tell all of you people right now, the deputy sheriffs are not lawyers. Plus, this is a legal court issue. It's not a law enforcement issue. Y'all calling the cops for issues that are not for them to dissolve or to resolve. So our deputies, instead of going and trying to find cartel members, trying to take care of drug issues and drug dealing and homicides and sexual assaults, you're calling them out for an issue that should have come in front of the court, not in front of a deputy. So we're using our officers for these things instead of coming to the court and filing your action right away? Yes?
I was desperate. I wanted to get my car back.
Then you file an action with the court.
And that's what he told me.
Exactly. So he had to waste probably at least 2 hours of his day, if not 3, to go over to talk to you to say, you got to file a civil matter with the court. Instead of, again, patrolling the streets, finding drug dealers, solving homicides, solving sexual assaults, real crime.
I've learned my lesson on that. I won't ever do it again.
Okay. So you have the sheriff, he said, file an action.
I'm sorry?
The deputy sheriff said, you have to file a court.
Yeah, file court, yeah.
Okay.
So then I went to Tori and said, I will give you your money back. Give me the car. And she refused again.
So when did you come up with this deal for taking the loan amount out of her paycheck?
Loan amount was actually wasn't going toward the car. It was going toward the other things, as you saw on that stub: rent, utilities, insurance. One of the things, she was not carrying insurance on the car, so I had to take out an insurance policy.
You defined her rent and utilities as a loan?
Well, it's money she owed me. It would be money that she owed me, yes.
Makes no sense. Usually when things don't make sense, it's not true.
I guess it's the way I have any of my employees that owed me money. It was always just loan, or for a better term to call it, money. Instead of writing money owed me, I just wrote loan,
Again, it doesn't make sense, because if we're starting at the beginning and we're looking at this, you don't go, okay, she's gonna live with me, or we have a 6-month rent or lease, because then we're dealing with a 6-month lease instead of a week to week to week lease, which has been defined as. But you're saying you're defining all of over the span of time what you think she's gonna owe you, and you're saying it's a loan, then you're deducting out of her paycheck?
Deducting what?
You're deducting her rent, her utilities out of her paycheck because you've calculated 6 months or 5 months of what she's gonna owe you?
No, I calculated as she owed me. It was never where I owed her money or took more than she actually owed me.
Then I just don't understand the identification of loan when it's supposed to be rent and utilities. Oh, okay. What else would you like me to know?
Okay, then I was told
By who?
by my wife
Well, then she can testify to that.
that Tori had hit a deer with the
She
car.
can testify to that. She will when you call her as a witness, or when she wants to provide her side of the story, because she'll be able to give her own testimony.
Okay, well, I know then that
You
Tori,
can't tell me,
I'm sorry,
I mean, you can tell me if Tori told you she hit a deer. Because
she did not. She told my wife,
And then so that your wife gets to testify to that part,
right,
okay? So anything related to the deer, your wife gets to testify.
okay. I do have an estimate of damages done to the vehicle by hitting that deer that I would like to put in.
Well, what are you asking for? What do you want the court to do with the car? You can't get damages and $2,000.
I am showing that the car is worth less than what she bought it because of the 1,500 or the damage to the car.
So you want her, okay, to pay less than
So
that?
I would like to have this deducted from the $2,500 that she paid me.
No, because if you're asking for $2,000, then she has the car. She can blow it up for all.
If she gives me
Yeah.
$2,000, then yeah, she can have the car.
So that's why I'm asking, what are you asking of the court? Do you want the car back?
Yes, I want the car back,
So you don't want $2,000.
but I don't want to have to pay her to get the car back. I wanted this amount and another amount deducted from the value of the car because she has devalued the car. Then the second item is she removed the catalytic converter from the car and sold it.
With regards to 25 SC 142 in the eviction matter, Mr. Smoody, you testified that your agreement with Ms. Mott, when you came back in the middle of February from Arizona, that she could stay until the end of the school year, with her son, and that the lease would go until the end of the school year. Even though it originally was supposed to end April 1st, you reached another agreement separate from the first agreement in which you agreed and you extended the lease from a week to week, from whenever you told her in the middle of February. The lease then started then until the end of the school year. School years end, I believe, Ms. Mott, that it was around June 4th, 5th, or 6th. That's when the schools end in Burnett County, unless there's some odd situation like construction and then they end somewhere else. So your lease agreement with Ms. Mott was to be until the end of the school year, to be at least the first week of June. So through at least June 8th. Whether or not it extended the day after the school year or the weekend after the school year or the next week or anything other than that, I have no confirmation. I have no statement or testimony from either side. So the agreement that you reached with Ms. Mott was to be until the end of the school year, at least the first week of July, and that included her ability to rent those 2 rooms in your house. Not the loft, those 2 rooms. And although I have a great understanding and I appreciate the fact that you were going to be great grandparents and take your 15 and 17-year-old grandchildren in with you, you had no legal right to do any actions that would lead Ms. Mott to be out of those 2 rooms or to move to the loft. And you testified, Mr. Smooney, that you did not want her in the loft. That means she had every right to continue into those 2 bedrooms in the home. But from hearing the testimony from both sides, you may have been friends at one time, you may have been co-workers at one time, but this is there's an agitated relationship, there's a frustrated relationship, there's anger in between both of you. I fully believe that whatever occurred when you went to court or got the children, your grandchildren, through CPS to have them with you, I believe that you tried to change the deal or do actions that caused Ms. Mott to want to get out and go to the loft. So, but that wasn't the deal. She rented those 2 rooms in your house until the end of the school year. As to the electricity, there's not enough for the court to even determine that it was shut off on purpose. I understand breakers and circuits. I'm not an electrician, so I understand it that much, but I do understand overloading them. So I tend to believe Mr. Smooney more that the breaker just needed it flipped. But as to the bathroom, you had no legal right to restrict her or her son from using the restroom, from using a shower, from using those types of things that she had a lease for, an oral lease for, until the end of the school year. You couldn't do that. Not only is it inhuman, it's awful and terrible and illegal. You can't do that. You were a landlord. You rented rooms. You could not do that. You made it uninhabitable. You made it a terrible living situation for Ms. Mott and her son. You can't do that. And the fact that there's a porta potty, shame on you. That is awful. When we go to the vehicle and we look at the car, again, pay stubs, not legal pay stubs, make no sense. but they make enough sense in hearing the testimony from both sides where the court can go off of it and make a determination and make a judgment and decision based upon these to the best of my ability. You have rent written on there as a deduction from the hours she worked. Then you have a loan amount. This loan amount keeps going down. On a separate entry, you have another deduction for insurance. And there, her balance of her pay stub that week was to be $87. And underneath it, you say $80 to the car. Ms. Mott testified that some weeks she received only $7 in her envelope. I believe that's accurate and true. And I believe that your pay stubs, again, if you call them that, not only reflects a deduction for rent from the pay, a deduction of insurance, but a deduction from the car loan. And in looking at these 3 pages, it starts at $1,800. You testified that she owed you $2,000 to finish paying off that vehicle, $2,000. Then you look at the first pay stub and it deducts, like her total of hours and her wages is $377. You deduct the $100 for the rent, there's $277. The loan balance now says $1,800. The court then presumes and can follow based upon the testimony of Ms. Mott that she received $77 in her envelope that week. And so it deducted the loan of $2,000 that was still remaining, or the amount remaining on the vehicle, down to $1,800 when you took the $200 from her paycheck. So your documentation, although confusing and not legal and not great, is your downfall. Because the last entry for the loan states that the loan amount that was still remaining is $950. And that's in your writing, your ledger, your proof to the court. So there was $950 still remaining. As to insurance, again, there are deductions made for insurance, $100 on one, $25 on another. So in all of the evidence and proof for exhibits and through the testimony, the loan amount remained $950 for the vehicle. That's all she would owe you, $950. But I'm going to tell you, the terrible actions that you did as a landlord, as well as a human being. I'm ordering that Ms. Mott have $950. You owe her $950. So that wipes out the loan of the car. That wipes out any money she owes you. You must turn over the title to Ms. Mott. The damage is hers and hers to take care of. If there's not a catalytic converter, that's hers and hers to deal with. She owns the car. She owes you no money. You owe her no money. But she has a right to have that title and to have that title within 10 days. And it must be transferred immediately to your name because the law says, I believe within, I think it says 30 days, but I can't recall off the top of my head. You must get it in your name immediately. You must have it insured immediately because that is the law. And then you will get your plates through the mail, but you'll get a temporary plate. So you have the title with you today.
Yes, I do.
All right, then just sign it over and we'll take care of it today.
For 6 weeks rent that she never paid.
You didn't ask for that, Mr. Snooty. You asked for no damages in your eviction. So you get no damages. That's why. If you have legal questions, you must talk to a lawyer. Is there still a lien on the title?
No, Your Honor.
No, there is not. All right, so that handles that situation.
Your Honor, after the last hearing with Krupa, that's when I looked up on the DMV about the lien. And when I called the bank that the lien was under, they said that they should have a release of lien form 2 to hand me, or maybe it's just the title now, if they got that in time. I'm not quite sure. I just want to
I've got it.
make sure my bases are covered.
All right, then the release of lien and the title must be presented. You have both of them. Present them to Ms. Mott as soon as they are signed, and then everything should be good to go. Everything needs to be in real written writing with words. And Mr. Smoody, you cannot run a business with ledgers like that or pay steps like that. It could get you into legal trouble.
She was a unique situation. I'm
unique
legal with
situation.
everybody else.
There's no unique situation.
Yeah.
Especially when you have other dealings involved, such as a lease and such as a vehicle. It's only going to get you into trouble, not the person that you're supposed to be dealing with. Because you are held at a higher level. You're a business owner, you're a landlord, and you're putting yourself in the position of a seller of a vehicle. It's on you to make sure that things are done properly. Well, and you should have followed up too, Ms. Mott, because those pay stubs,
$4,500.
all right. There you are. Then we are done and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
No handshake deals.